The psychology of business. How are very successful people different from simply being successful? As a specialist who has been interacting with success people for many years, successful people are constantly being asked questions. What allowed them to achieve? What qualities have helped them on their way to the top? There is a lot of interest in such people around the world, and their life path becomes a role model. Life becomes an example to follow. The dream of many is to repeat the success of Henry Ford or Bill Gates, who built their corporation from scratch, being around very successful. For many years, watching them in the process of work, I had an opportunity to understand how they differ from just successful, to note those qualities that are as if the supporting constructions of their personality. Those who now make up the top of Russian business, the owners and managers of large companies, corporations, and banks, can be roughly divided into three groups. The first group consists of former Communist Party and Komsomol workers and managers of large industrial enterprises who got their bearings in time. The first group consists of former Communist Party and Komsomol leaders and heads of large industrial enterprises who found their bearings and managed to acquire the property. One was an oil company. The other a factory for the production of phone was an oil company. The other a building materials factory, etc. The second group were active, intelligent, talented people who they were able to get hold of part of the state property, making the best use of the situation and the specifics of Russian law. Representatives of these two groups we call oligarchs. Today, these people, of course, have exceptional business and personal qualities, which allowed them to organize successful business. But enough has already been written and said about them. A particular interest in answering the question posed in the title is the new generation of Russian businessmen, those who can be called self-made. They do not hold big posts. They do not have administrative or political resources or powerful patrons. They have not participated in the sharing of state property. They created their own business from scratch. These people succeeded only because of their personal qualities. Today, they are 30 to 40 years old. They own big businesses and have a significant influence on the Russian economy. So, what distinguishes these people? What qualities have helped them to succeed, to become rich and influential? The power of desire above all. It is the scale of desire, a kind of obsession with a big goal. In psychoanalysis, there's even a concept called the power of desire. It's not peculiar to an ordinary person. He wouldn't think of it, and even if he did, he would be frightened at the mere thought of it. In addition, you must have the courage to carry out his plans. What if the situation changes drastically? The situation may change suddenly. If the necessary law is not passed, if the dollar exchange rate drops, etc. And the business leader's ambitious desires and clear goals supported by absolute faith in success, it is also a rare quality that helps to make desirable things real. There is an interesting pattern here. These psychological qualities manifest themselves in childhood. One businessman once told me that when he was 13, he already dreamed of becoming a millionaire. That was back under the Soviets, a strange, fantastic wish. And he made it come true. Or another example. In the beginning of the 90s, a young man, he was 22 years old at the time, went to Holland, where he was struck by a cozy cottage village with restaurants, sports fields. And he dreamed of building such a village in Russia. He didn't have no company, no money, no special construction education. All he had was a strong desire and a belief in success. And he did, indeed, created a construction industrial corporation. Powerful internal momentum that very successful are guided by their own principles, and they do not need any external incentives, systems, motivation, compensation, and incentives. They belong to the category of people who will work and set goals without any external stimuli. That is why they are able to achieve them even despite the attitude of others, when everyone around is convinced that they are not going to succeed. Here is the model of life of such people. want do. To realize this model is helped by another important quality of internal barriers, internal conflict. This is due to the adequacy of motivational aspirations, which do not contradict or do not block each other. It is as if very successful have no internal, irreconcilable opposition, and they are able to overcome with excitement, unreasonable optimism. Such people in general regard their chances higher than those of others. They believe in their own abilities and think they have better abilities than most other people. They are convinced that they can do anything. They have a high tolerance for failure, even major ones, called the skin layer of optimism. What's called a subcutaneous layer of optimism. Failures do not lead to the fact that they give up, but on the contrary, encourage them to mobilize all resources of life. There is excitement to win. There is such a notion in psychology, unjustified optimism. But it should be understood that optimism is always unjustified because it by definition assumes a successful outcome, when in reality the chances are almost always 50th. But these people believe in success often in spite of what is going on around them, and oddly enough, they achieve it. What is their optimism based on? It's the belief that any goal can be achieved and that the world is, in principle, manageable. People of action, there is a certain mania of omnipotence. Inherent in them, the feeling of an absolute possibility to influence everything that happens. As Makarevich said, "You should bend under the changing world. Let it bend under us." Philosophy of such people, everything can be done. Everything can be solved. That's why they don't understand when, for example, a contractor comes to them and says, "We can't do it." How can we not do it? It's elementary. And they really do it. Openness to the hard truth, the openness to hard truths and real facts, no matter how awful, combined with the belief in victory, no matter what is striking in these people. I have witnessed situations like this in their business, when it seems to everyone around them that nothing can be done, nothing can be done. But in our heroes, it's just an excitement. And having dealt with the inevitable difficulties, they come out of this struggle stronger. The main thing is to know the truth. It allows you to make the right decision. Said one executive when I asked him how he managed to get his company out of a seemingly hopeless situation. Competence and time successful people are always on good terms with time. They live in the present, not in the future or the past. But at the same time for them, unlike most people, there is both the past and the future. There are people who live in the past. Others, on the contrary, dream about the future, making plans all the time, preparing for exploits. But the real life is not lived by either of them. Remember, Lermontov wrote, "I look at the future with fear. I look at the past with longing." Here, that kind of worldview is completely uncharacteristic of the people we're talking about. Successful people are competent in time. They are very realistic in their assessment of prospects. They easily connect current tasks with strategic plans. Perceive time as a continuous flow. They operate very easily with time, both past and as well as the future. They are completely calm and realistic. Do not fear the future. Do not build castles in the air. At the same time, they do not regret what has been done. About their mistakes, they say, well, at least I've learned from it. And they use their failures as a springboard for future achievements. A black and white perception of the world add to this an astonishing sense of purpose, a kind of narrowing of consciousness. Everything is subordinated to the goal. All life situations and facts are sorted according to the principle necessary, not necessary. And everything necessary is attracted like a magnet, while the unnecessary is discarded. Of course, this requires concentration. Such a person, like a sniper at the moment of shooting, sees the world through the scope. Of course, going through this prism of goals, the world is simplified, becomes somewhat black and white. It has either the means to achieve the ends or obstacles. Likewise, People can be useful or useless, comrades in arms or enemies. And the more goal-oriented a person is, the more this black and white perception of the world. It seems to those around him that such a person is impoverishing his life, that for the sake of the cause he will sacrifice everything, family, friends, rest, etc. But for such people it is not a sacrifice, it is their life. Absolutely full, interesting, saturated. And everything else goes somewhere on the rest goes somewhere on the periphery of consciousness. Fishing, raising children, going on trips together with a family at the country house, taking care of their loved ones for them, it is a forced stopover. Yes, they do it, knowing intellectually that it's the right thing to do. But at that moment, they feel like they're doing nothing. They're doing their duty, because they're not contributing to their cause. There have been people of this type before. They were workaholics who raised factories, built dams, invented rockets, etc. At the same time, those people did not have the opportunity to do their own business. So retirement became a tragedy for them. They were not ready for a life of inactivity. They quickly gave up, became ill, or even simply died. To those around them, such people often seem heartless, selfish, proud, and vain. But they're just focused on their agenda. So everything else is dismissed. We are not talking about ordinary people, but about the restless minority. Those who are indeed business-oriented, who needs more than anyone else, who is ready to lead, who are ready to lead and carry a great burden of responsibility and throw away everything superfluous. Most people are not capable of that, and thank God. Charisma. The very successful are able to sort of mesmerize and entice with the appealing power of a charismatic personality. They feel an unconditional right to control people, even if their age, experience, and qualifications are insignificantly higher than those of the successful ones. The charismatic person is endowed with power, influencing the thoughts and actions of others. People. When such a leader appears in the office, life around boils up. When he is gone, it's as if everything stops. He can speak, loud or quiet, he may stutter, he may be handsome or ugly, but people follow him. You can call it charisma, strong energy, leadership, whatever. Aptitude for risk. These people are characterized by courage, risk-taking, and urge to extreme in everything at work, at leisure. Courage in business is a combination of risk and responsibility. You make decisions, the price for which is very high. Decisions will be followed by changes, and this is always a risk. How many decisions, risky, dangerous, adventurous, do business people make every day? People make every day. It's hard to calculate. And yet, they have no fear. On the contrary, they enjoy taking responsibility, and for people. Risky business is accompanied by extreme recreation. As strange as it may seem, the myth of the need for adrenaline injections is supported not only by journalists, but also by many psychologists. Those who do not work with such people. Observe the very successful in casinos, and you will see that they play without any excitement. They have no interest in such games, because every day they be making huge bets in a real, more entertaining game for them. Game business. On the contrary, state officials like to cheer themselves up artificially behind the green benches, like government officials or the children of wealthy parents who lack natural stresses. Extreme 4. Very successful. Really the main form of recreation. It is now written about a lot. They don't drink, they don't do drugs. They don't drink, they don't do drugs. How do you make yourself forget about work? Extreme helps risk, danger, exertion. That's why, when they ski, they choose the most difficult descents, water skiing, somersaults, skydive, fly jets, etc. They are fearless. They feel invulnerable, somewhere on the verge of immortality. They're sure they're in complete control, and they don't bother with wills like Western businessmen. They are interested in the present day, High energy. Another defining quality is high energy, a kind of perpetual motion machine. These people can work 15 to 20 hours a day, and having arrived from Kamchatka to Moscow, they are ready to go immediately to negotiations. To the US, from there to Europe, then fly somewhere for a weekend of skiing. Skiing, and then to their enterprise in the Urals, and so on. The rhythm of their lives is so intense that assistants, deputies, people in their immediate environment sometimes can't take it, either physically or psychologically. Powerful creative impulse. Another amazing ability of our heroes is to generate successful projects, to create new companies, enterprises, even without special education and without knowing the specifics of business. A new idea emerges, you quickly sketch something out, discuss it, and you're ready to I quickly sketch something out and talked it over, and I'm ready to act. People of this kind manage people, huge companies, powerful financial flows, without without the slightest bit of shyness. They believe that they are capable of creating something bigger and more enduring than themselves. To create, to build, develop are the key words of their business life. And increasing the scale of tasks, the scope of management and responsibility can lead such people into politics as well. Responsibility and moral boundaries. They have a heightened sense of responsibility for their words, for their deeds, for the people who trust them. When so much is given, so much is asked, and, accordingly, the requirements for observing moral and ethical standards are heightened. Too many human destinies depend on these people. Too many human destinies, sometimes even on a national scale, depend on these people. They have their own set of rules, certain ethical principles, internal norms, moral boundaries that can't be crossed. And the observance of these rules is very important. It is what allows them to hold their heads up high and boldly go forward and tear business. Building normal business relationships today is economically as much more profitable than trying to screw somebody. The business world is very small. All the big businessmen know each other and understand what business reputation. It is a matter of honor for them to pay their bills. With them, you don't have to sign any contacts with them. Their word of honor is enough. Clarity of thought and lack of alternative solutions. They are able to perceive the maximum of information at the input without any filters or barriers to analyze it, make non-standard connections. Multivariate input, absence of internal barriers, and no alternative decision on the output. Unlike most people who make decisions, and then very successful people have a unique ability to make non-alternative decisions. Until a decision is worked out, they are open to discussion, to dialogue, but as soon as the solution is ready, it is no longer discussed. Their focus is on the implementation of the solution, achieving the goal. And then their interest shifts to the next project, the next goal. Today, it is considered good form to have several diplomas of higher education, MBA, etc. But business schools do not teach creativity. The business school, however, does not teach creativity. People with excellent education and professionals are often turn out to be helpless in real business. On the contrary, a person who does everything contrary to what is written in textbooks on management, corporate governance, or anti-crisis management comes along and succeeds. They say, there are no formulas at the top. And indeed, unique, non-standard, original solutions are often made just in spite of the schemes and formulas. It is no coincidence that those who have achieved such great results, such as Bill Gates and the like, often do not even have a full-fledged higher education. Many members of our business aristocracy are also undereducated. Even those who received a specialized education from the second or third year or so were engaged in the real business was much more interesting for them than their college diploma. Rational attitude towards money. In general, money is a diagnostic category. To paraphrase a well-known saying. Paraphrasing a well-known saying. Show me how you spend your money, and I'll tell you who you are. We give money the same traits that we have, and that's why a businessman's money works all the time. There are clear strategic guidelines, including quantitative guidelines, and the businessman always knows clearly where he will invest money in production, in development, and how he will use the profit he gets. Money for such people is more of a means, but not an end. It is they give their boss the opportunity to solve problems on a completely different scale. Today he makes a $50 million decision, and tomorrow he makes a $500 million decision. Money makes it possible to go to the money allows to reach a qualitatively different level of decisions, to a new stage of development, and to considerably expand the sphere of influence and business interests. Attitude toward business is a way of self-realization. It is sometimes said that business people in business realize their complexes, compensate for their lack of productivity in other areas of life. This is not true. I would say that hypercompensation is more typical of dictators and politicians. Often it is the humiliation experienced in childhood, ambition, a desire for power, etc. For the people we are talking about, business is a way of self-realization and not at all a way to compensate for something that they have everything. That's why they are so successful. They especially enjoy winning seemingly impossible situations. Seemingly impossible situations. And here I discovered an interesting pattern. One of the oligarchs of the top 5, when asked about his favorite fairy tale as a child, and favorite fairy tales are sometimes the basis of our life scenario, mentioned a frog that got out of a sour cream jug by whipping it into butter. I counted another 5 people among my acquaintances, successful businessmen, who are fans of the persistent frog. They know how to solve a problem, to get out of from any, at first glance completely hopeless, situation, when under any circumstances. 2 of my acquaintances, as children, like to fight mentally with the own head cut off, and 2 new ones grow up. This is their scenario. Fight, win, fight again, etc. But I have not met the lovers of the fairy tale about the Amelia or the goldfish among. I haven't met any business leaders yet. Healthy opportunism, also very successful, is distinguished by the ability to grasp all the possible opportunities around them and use them at their best. In fact, everything they encounter, situations, people, ideas, is targeted towards a specific goal. These people always know what they want. They have a certain inner integrity, a clear understanding of their main goals and needs. And because of this, they have the able to use all the winds that are blowing. And every wind is like a tailwind for them. And what thirst is a hindrance. Success people are able to turn it to their advantage. Their advantage. For example, a new law is passed, and everyone is terrified, but they find solutions to use that law to their advantage. For their own benefit. Any unfavorable situation, at first glance a bad harvest, a change in the exchange rate, the departure of a top manager, they make it work for them. But of course, there is another side to the coin. As soon as something becomes unnecessary, it is cut off. People, divisions, and organizations sort of off, as it were, are erased in their minds, evoking no emotion at all. This attitude often offends those around them, and is perceived as cruelty, heartlessness, while the people of success simply do not see this. For them, it is like a spent rocket stage. And this functional approach for the successful minority is the only acceptable one. Ingenious simplicity. It is characteristic of the very successful, not to complicate but to simplify, to make everything clearer and clearer. The structure of the company, the formulation of the problem, the structure of the company, the mission statement, the technological process. Since they always know what is essential for them, they always know what is important for them, and what is not. So they structure everything very quickly and precisely, and sort it, and rank it by the level of importance. They are not characterized by being scientific, by complicated speech. They have a rather high self-esteem, and do not have they have rather high self-esteem. and are not afraid of seeming they have a rather high self-esteem, and are not afraid to seem inadvertently not so smart, uneducated, etc. It is not peculiar to them to form multi-tiered, intellectual nudges, in order to understand the point and explain it to others. This was admirably articulated in relation to his poetic method, Nikolai Stepanovich Gumilev. I do not bother them with deep, meaningful allusions to the content of the kernel. However, by simplifying, they do not primitivize, but rather streamline and clarify. I once asked an executive of a large about a new technology at one of his enterprises, and he told me, a technically untrained person, he was able to clearly, accurately, and he managed to explain to me, in 5 minutes, not only the meaning of this process, but also what exactly he is planning to improve, and what this would mean for him in the long run. He is planning to improve, and what this will mean for him. Reliance on the positive. Such people don't focus on their shortcomings. Don't try to continuously calculate what they lack, how much they need to learn, how much more they need to know to achieve a goal. They rely on their strengths, on their successful strategies, on the accomplishments that they have by this point. They act in relation to themselves like an experienced, talented coach who subtly notices in his student the right actions, the right techniques, the right strategies, and highlights that one and unique crown that allows an athlete to achieve a victory. In addition, such people are able and fond of celebrating their success. Pushkin, after finishing a brilliant poem, once exclaimed, "Ai to Pushkin, Ai to son of a bitch." But the joy of the very successful is sort of dosed. It does not last long. Having clearly marked their success, they continue to create and continue to act. Democracy and modesty. A man who started from scratch, without a backpack of connections. An inheritance. Not long ago, he owned a small company, but today he owns the world. As today, he owns the largest holding company. It is not typical for him to lose his sense of reality. If he did it all by himself, if he climbed to the top by himself, scratching his hands, feet, and knees in blood, if the wealth did not, if it all comes naturally, then he's just growing up, gaining experience, taking on more responsibility, and not liking the hype around his own person. Such people stand firmly on the ground, unlike those who were parachuted to the top, such as the children of oligarchs or ministers who inherited an empire, and they gradually begin to think that it was they who created it, and that it is the billions they have earned that lie in Swiss banks. It is always possible to distinguish by the behavior of those who created their business from those who got it. Look at the way an executive and how he manages his time, how open and democratic he is, and you'll see. If this is the heir apparent, you immediately sense falsity and a certain demonstrativeness, differentness, uniqueness. Surrounded by big businessmen, there are no people similar to them, comparable to them in their personal qualities. They are different, independent, and unconventional in their views, habits, and are often perceived by others as eccentric. They allow themselves to be stubborn, irritable, cold, callous, and ruthless. They focus on themselves and their agendas, and can overwhelm and surprise others with their extravagant behavior. From childhood, they feel they are unusual, often falling into the ugly duckling position, but even then, often in the position of weird and marginalized. They feel their uniqueness. One very famous businessman said, "I am 14 years old. I have to wait 20 or 30 minutes for a bus in the freezing cold to get from the outskirts of Moscow to get to an English special school. I cram into the bus. I'm being pushed on all sides. I'm being pushed and pressed on all sides. And I'm thinking, you don't know yet who you're going with. You don't know who you're going with and who I'm going to be." Existential anxiety. It would seem that they have everything, have satisfied all of their needs, both basic vital and the need for communication, guidance, self-actualization. They have money, success, and wealth. And still they constantly feel what professional psychology literature calls existential anxiety. They're always wanting for more. Many of the people we started this conversation with, many of those we began our conversation with in the first and second groups, have given up business and are vacationing on them. Azure, their needs have been met, fulfilled, and in the end they have been fulfilled, realized, and in the end they have retired from business. And the new business elite are the more productive people for the country's economy. They have a kind of psychological perpetual drive. They have reached the top of Maslow's pyramid of needs asterisk, and from an existential point of view, they will never be able to fully realize themselves. As soon as they achieve one goal, they immediately set the next one. Today, this type of personality is becoming extremely popular, prestigious, almost the only model of the optimal way of life. They tend to be imitated. They are set as an example for their children. Certainly, without such people, progress and development would be impossible. However, we must understand that life, the essence of which is goal-seeking, though it is the most approved and many consider it to be the basic one, is not suitable for everybody, and there are many other life models besides goal-seeking. If you like my channel, tell your friends and family about it. Perhaps it will also be of interest to them. Subscribe to my channel, click the bell, so as not to miss new releases. And also write your opinion in the comments. Thank you for your attention.